Everyone remembers the F-4 Phantom when they picture the Vietnam War, but it was only the tip of a much larger jet force. Attack and strike jets, a 4 Skyhawk was the Navy and Marine Corps' primary light attack jet in the early years of the war. Small, simple, and agile, it could carry a surprisingly heavy bomb load from cramped carrier decks. Skyhawks flew thousands of low-level sorties over North and South Vietnam, hitting bridges, airfields, and coastal defenses. A 6 Intruder was a 2-seat, all-weather attack jet designed to fly low through clouds and darkness. With advanced radar and navigation systems, it specialized in night and bad weather strikes when other aircraft had to stay home. Intruders became famous for deep penetration raids over North Vietnam during Rolling Thunder and later linebacker operations. A 7 Corsair II. Arriving later in the conflict, the 7 Corsair II replaced many older attack types on carriers. Its modern navigation and bombing computers allowed very accurate delivery of bombs from medium altitude. A-7s played a major role in the 1972 linebacker campaigns, attacking air defenses, supply routes, and industrial targets. A 37 Dragonfly grew out of a jet trainer and was adapted for close air support and counterinsurgency. Compact and easy to maintain, it operated from rough airstrips and carried guns, rockets, and small bombs. Both the U.S. Air Force and the South Vietnamese Air Force used A-37s extensively against ground targets. A 3 Skywarrior, nicknamed the Whale, was one of the largest carrier-based jets ever built. Originally a nuclear bomber, in Vietnam it served mainly as a conventional bomber, tanker, and electronic warfare platform. Its size let it carry heavy loads and extra fuel for long-range missions over Southeast Asia. Strategic and tactical bombers. B-52 Stratofortress was the giant of the air war. Flying from bases in Guam and Thailand, it carried enormous payloads of conventional bombs in high-altitude arc-light raids. During the 1972 Linebacker II Christmas bombing, B-52s delivered intense strikes against Hanoi and Haiphong. B-57 Canberra was a twin-engine tactical bomber derived from a British design. In Vietnam, it flew medium and low-level bombing missions, often at night, against supply convoys and base areas. Its ability to loiter over a target made it useful for interdiction along the Ho Chi Minh Trail. B-66 Destroyer started life as a light bomber, but in Vietnam it was mostly converted to reconnaissance and electronic warfare roles. Its speed and range made it a good platform for carrying cameras and sensors deep into defended airspace. Later variants helped guide strike packages and assess bomb damage. Fighters and Interceptors. F-4 Phantom II was the most famous U.S. fighter of the Vietnam War. A powerful twin-engine jet with long range and heavy missile armament, it served with the Air Force, Navy, and Marine Corps. F-4s performed air-to-air combat, ground attack, and escort missions, and scored the majority of American MiG kills. F-8 Crusader was a carrier-based fighter celebrated as the last of the gunfighters. It combined good speed and maneuverability with a battery of cannon and later Sidewinder missiles. Crusaders achieved an impressive kill ratio against North Vietnamese MiGs while also flying limited strike missions. F-100 Super Sabre, a first-generation supersonic fighter, served mainly in the fighter-bomber role. Air Force F-100s provided close air support for ground troops in South Vietnam and flew armed reconnaissance. The type also supported the early, MISTY, Fast Forward Air Controller program. F-105 Thunderchief, known as the Thud, was a large, fast fighter bomber built to deliver heavy loads at high speed. It flew the majority of early strike missions over North Vietnam, often in the face of dense air defenses. Specialized F-105F and F-105G, Wild Weasel, variants hunted enemy surface-to-air missile sites. F-102 Delta Dagger was a delta-wing interceptor originally designed for continental air defense. In Vietnam, it deployed to protect major bases and provide combat air patrols against potential bomber threats. Its role was limited, but it added an extra layer of security in the early years of the war. F-104 Starfighter was a very fast, high-altitude interceptor with a slim fuselage and tiny wings. A small number served in Southeast Asia, flying air defense and escort missions from bases in Thailand and South Vietnam. Its time in theater was brief, but it demonstrated high-speed escort capability for strike formations. F-5 Freedom Fighter was a compact, economical jet evaluated in combat under the Scotia Tiger program. Its good handling and low operating cost made it attractive for Allied air forces. The F-5 later became an important fighter for the South Vietnamese Air Force and many other nations. F-111 Aardvark introduced variable sweep wings and advanced terrain following radar to combat operations. In Vietnam, it flew deep, low-level night strike missions, often alone and in bad weather. Its ability to deliver precision attacks at high speed made it a unique asset in the final years of the war. F-14 Tomcat appeared only at the very end of the conflict. Entering service with the U.S. Navy in the mid-1970s, it provided air cover during the evacuation of Saigon. Its long-range radar and Phoenix missiles were more important in later Cold War service, but its combat debut tied into Vietnam's closing chapter. FJ-4B Fury was a swept-wing Navy jet derived from the F-86 Sabre. Configured as a fighter-bomber, it carried conventional bombs and rockets from carrier decks. Furies flew early strike and close support missions before newer types replaced them. Reconnaissance and intelligence jets. SR-71 Blackbird was a Mach 3 reconnaissance jet that operated at extreme altitude. From far above North Vietnam, it photographed strategic targets and tracked air defense developments. Its speed and height made it essentially immune to interception. A 12 Oxcart was a CIA predecessor to the SR-71, also built for very high-speed reconnaissance. Though its operations were highly classified, it conducted a small number of missions over Southeast Asia. Much of the experience from a 12 flights fed directly into Blackbird operations. U-2 Dragon Lady was a high-altitude spy plane with long, slender wings. In Vietnam, it monitored surface-to-air missile sites, airfields, and troop concentrations from near space altitudes. Its imagery guided many later strikes and helped planners follow enemy moves. RF-101 Voodoo was a fast, low-level photo reconnaissance jet. Flying alone and often unarmed, it photographed key targets before and after air raids. Its speed at treetop height made it hard to intercept, but missions were extremely dangerous. RF-5C Vigilante was a large, carrier-based reconnaissance jet loaded with advanced cameras and sensors. Operating from Navy carriers, it mapped heavily defended areas of North Vietnam. High-risk flights and intense air defenses led to significant losses. RF-8 Crusader replaced guns with cameras in a modified fighter airframe. It performed low and medium-altitude photo runs, capturing detailed imagery of roads, bridges, and air defenses. RF-8s combined speed, agility, and good visibility for their demanding missions. RB-47H was an electronic and photographic reconnaissance version of the B-47 bomber. Although usually based outside the immediate combat zone, it flew along the region's borders. Its role was to collect signals and strategic intelligence from standoff distances. Electronic warfare and signals jets. Douglas EB-66 destroyer was an electronic warfare conversion of the B-66. Packed with jamming transmitters and receivers, it escorted strike packages to disrupt enemy radar and communications. Its presence reduced the effectiveness of North Vietnamese air defenses. EA-6B Prowler grew from the 6 attack jet into dedicated jamming platforms. In Vietnam, they used powerful pods and onboard systems to blind surface-to-air missile radars during major bombing campaigns. These aircraft became some of the most valuable assets in suppressing enemy air defenses. EA-3B Skywarrior, variant of the Skywarrior, served as a Navy carrier-based electronic warfare jet. It combined signals intelligence collection with standoff jamming and, in some roles, aerial refueling. Operating from carriers in the Gulf of Tonkin, it supported many large strike operations. EF-10B Skyhawk was an early jet night fighter reworked for jamming duties. Marine Corps units used it to counter enemy radar-directed guns and missiles. Though slow by later standards, it provided vital early electronic warfare coverage. RC-135 family were large intelligence-gathering jets equipped with extensive antenna arrays. Flying outside the heaviest threat zones, they intercepted communications and radar emissions. Their data helped planners understand enemy capabilities and reactions in near real time. Unmanned reconnaissance drones, 147 Lightning Bug. The Model 147 Lightning Bug was a jet-powered drone launched from modified bombers. It flew over heavily defended areas such as Hanoi to take photos and gather electronic data without risking a pilot. Recovered by parachute, its film and sensor recordings were carefully analyzed. BQM-34 Firebee was another remotely controlled jet drone. Used for high-altitude reconnaissance and testing enemy defenses, it helped measure the strength of radar and missile systems. Transport, tanker, and VIP jets. KC-135 Stratotanker was the primary jet tanker of the war. Operating from bases in Thailand and elsewhere, it refueled fighters and bombers en route to and from their targets. Without its young Tiger tanker force, many long-range missions would have been impossible. C-141 Starlifter was a long-range transport jet that shuttled troops and cargo between the United States and Southeast Asia. One specially marked aircraft became known as the Hanoi Taxi for returning American prisoners of war in 1973. C-5 Galaxy was a huge strategic airlifter entering service near the end of the conflict. It delivered tanks, helicopters, and outsized equipment to support South Vietnam during major offensives. C-140 Jetstar was a small business, jet-style transport used by the military. It moved high-ranking officers, specialists, and urgent documents quickly between regional bases. C-9 Nightingale was a dedicated aeromedical evacuation jet. Fitted with stretchers and medical equipment, it flew wounded personnel from theater hospitals to larger facilities. Boeing 727. Standard airliner types, such as the Boeing 727 and early 747, were also pressed into service. They transporting large numbers of troops and support staff across the Pacific with speed and relative comfort. T-33 Shooting Star was a two-seat trainer derived from the F-80. In and around Vietnam, it kept pilots current on jet procedures and flew light utility missions. T-37 Tweet was a small, twin-jet primary trainer known for its distinctive high-pitched engine noise. It introduced new pilots to basic jet flying before they moved on to frontline types. T-39 Sabreliner was a jet trainer and utility aircraft derived from a business jet. It carried small groups of personnel and provided radar and navigation training. TF-9J Cougar was a two-seat trainer version of an earlier Navy fighter. It helped carrier pilots transition safely to higher performance jets. T-38 Talon was a sleek, supersonic trainer. It gave future fighter and bomber pilots experience with high-speed handling, climb, and maneuvering. A P-2H Neptune and related variants. Although derived from a patrol bomber rather than a pure jet, heavily modified AP-2H and OP-2E Neptunes supported Operation Igloo White. They dropped acoustic and seismic sensors along the Ho Chi Minh Trail to detect truck traffic and guide strike missions. Taken together, this fleet of jets shows how wide the American air effort in Vietnam really was. From tiny trainers and drones to massive bombers and tankers, almost every role in the sky had a dedicated aircraft. Each type contributed its own piece, to a long and complex air war fought above the jungles, mountains, and cities of Southeast Asia.